Broadcasting from Cincinnati, you're listening to the Ringside Reporter Podcast. All the news from the world of boxing right here.
Well, I'm talking to you the way I want to talk to you.
Now, here's your host, Eric Lorda.
And we are live. Welcome to the Ringside Reporter Show, where we talk about the latest boxing news. If it's related to boxing, we'll talk about it here. My name is Eric Lorton. I'm here with my co-host, Joe Habib, and we have a great show for you tonight. And tonight, we're going to talk about Joe Louis versus Max Schmeling. We're going to go over both fights for you. So, hey, let's get started. June 19th, 1936 at Yankee Stadium, Joe Louis versus Max Schmeling won. Let me tell you how this fight went down, man. Max Schmeling knocks out Joe Louis in the 12th round to win the biggest fight of his career. No question about it, man. Schmeling did a very good job scouting Joe Louis before this fight. He noticed that when Joe Louis threw his jab, that he dropped his hands. When Joe Louis threw his jab, if you watch old fight videos or whatever, when Joe Louis threw his hand out, he'll throw the jab like this, and when he comes back, his hand's down. He doesn't answer the phone. His hand comes down by almost by his waist or by his chest, by almost to his waist. It was down pretty low.
Down by his hip.
Right. And you know what? And people still do that. I notice, almost like the Kronk style or whatever. People will do that. People will drop it down like that. I don't really get that. Especially Louis was like more squared too.
Well, the problem with Louis was the Kronk style. You keep your backhand, which if you're orthodox, which would be a right hand, keep it in front of your face like this. Unfortunately, Louis kept that hand down by his chest. So it's not like you could bring it down and if the right hand's coming, you're catching it right like with this, like you can parry it down with the right hand. You can't do that because that hand would be down by his chest as well. So his whole face was exposed.
And I don't know this for a fact because I didn't see every Joe Louis fight. Now I know he hadn't lost up until that point. At least I don't think he had. But
he was undefeated at that time.
Were you shocked at how easy Max Schmeling? I mean, Max Schmeling was really. Now, was he? He couldn't have been the first fighter to notice this. I think he was more the first fighter to take advantage of it and throw that right hand coming over that jab.
Well, Louis was so much quicker than everybody else.
Yeah,
but what beats speed? Timing.
Yes.
So if it's like I always say, if a pitcher's throwing a fastball and he's able to strike out everyone, but there's always that one batter that knows how to start the swing a little bit ahead of time, and he can get ahead of that. So Schmeling studied Louis so much that he got ahead of he basically instinctively, just as soon as that jab was coming back, he started throwing the right hand. He didn't wait. So he just waited for that jab to stop being pulled back, waited for Louis to recoil that left hand, and boom, he just timed it. No one else was able to time it, and it takes a great bit of bravery to be able to throw that right hand, a lead right hand over a jab like that, because you can get countered with the right yourself. So it was all about timing and the bravery and the mental strength and the mental will and willpower to be able to carry out that game plan that he had. A lot of people may have saw it, but they just couldn't react quick enough to it. And that's why they weren't able to capitalize on that mistake.
I think that was the big thing. And I tell you, they said, they said that Schmeling was ahead in this fight. And I believe he was. I mean,
he was.
But in that first 4 rounds, up until that 4th round,
it was an even
I
fight.
thought it was dead even. I thought Louis was doing a very good job. Now, what I did notice Schmeling doing, he did a very good job on his defense. And I'll address this mistake in the second fight, but Schmeling would lean backwards, and Joe Louis had a harder time reaching him. The other thing he did, what I noticed, is he smothered those shots. Louis was hitting him with right hands. Louis hit him with a couple of – Louis was hitting him with hard shots. 2 things. Max Schmeling could take a shot, and he also had good defense, and he also knew how to smother punches. He was very effective at that point. In the 4th round, to me, that's when the fight really kind of turned. Schmeling hit him with that right hand over the top and, stood him up. Louis was back. He got smacked with that right hand right over the top, and he just stood right up, and he was stunned. You could tell he was stunned. A flurry after that, put him down, put him, on his backside, and that was pretty much it. As far as the fight went, Max Schmeling really took control at that point. Nobody really expected that. I mean, and everybody had to be just stunned watching Joe Louis hit the deck like that. I mean, it was one of those things that just was not expected.
Well, Joe Louis was 23 at the time, and the rumor was at the time he was out golfing. Max Schmeling was 8 years older than him, like 31, 32-ish. Joe Louis didn't think that at his age he would, be at his peak.
No.
So I imagine and I suspect, and it seemed as though, according to people's accounts of the story, that Joe Louis probably underestimated him and took him lightly, which he didn't do in the second fight.
No, and if you look at that first fight, I mean, Joe Louis was, he was landing shots and everything. But yeah, you could tell he definitely took him lightly. No, I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah.
Max Schmeling was, he really wasn't in Joe Louis's league. I mean, he really wasn't.
No,
I mean, if you look at on paper, come on, man. This is Joe Louis here. And that's why they have the fights. That's why they have the fights. In the 12th round of this first fight, Schmeling landed a right hand, just like he's been doing all night. And let me tell you what, Louis could take a shot. And there's a lot of guys out there that can take big shots. You can't take those shots all night. I don't care who you are, what kind of chin you have, what kind of punch resistance you have. If you continue to get hit with flush shots all night long, you're not going to make it. It just is what it is. And that was the case here. Louis got wobbled in the 12th round. Schmeling walked him down, landed another big right hand that knocked Louis out. Louis on all fours almost, just draped over the ropes, went down on the canvas. Referee counted him out, and that was it. Let me tell you this, and what was great to see after the fight, the referee had counted him out. Schmeling immediately goes to Joe Louis, picks him up. Just what a great guy, what a great sportsman. It was really something to see, and I'm really, you were happy for Schmeling. You really were. I mean, looking back on it in history, obviously we're happy for Max Schmeling, that this happened and everything like that. It was one of those fights. He had fought all that time. He deserved it. He deserved the win for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Joe Louis, Max Schmeling 2. And that was quite a contrast to Joe Louis, Max Schmeling 1.
It certainly was.
So let's give you a little backstory here. June 22nd, 1938, again at Yankee Stadium, 70,000, Beeb. 70,000 fans packed Yankee Stadium to watch this second fight. I mean, think about that. You don't get those kind of crowds now. Who's the guy who comes closest to that? Maybe Canelo, Julio Cesar Chavez, Anthony Joshua for sure. You think about Chavez Haugen in the bull ring in Mexico. That was another big one. I think they had 100,000 people there. So that was a big one. So in modern history, you had some of those. 70,000, definitely nothing to sneeze at Yankee Stadium for sure. You don't get those kind of crowds. 10,000 is a big crowd now. 10, 15,000.
And then you also have to understand how long ago that was. The population of the United States was much less than it is now.
Yes. For sure.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's give you a little backstory on this second fight. So it's 1938. Hitler's rising to power in Germany. Max Schmeling, of course, from Germany. And the media really tried to paint him as the bad guy here. They tried to paint him as the Hitler guy coming over to fight our American guy. And nothing could be further from the truth. Max Schmeling was not a part of the Nazi party. He was not into that. He had a Jewish manager that they tried to get rid of. That Hitler and Goebbels, they said, no, you got to get rid of this guy. Schmeling refused. The fact that Schmeling was winning, they kind of let it slide, but they didn't, Schmeling wasn't their good guy there. He wasn't on the Nazi, the Nazi party or anything like that. So but hey, listen, man, promotion has always been a part of boxing, right? What sells? You have to have a good guy and a bad guy. Now, as far as promotion went, I don't think you could have had a better promotion than this. I really don't. You think about a good guy and a bad guy. This is as crazy as it gets. I mean, this is, we're right on the brink of a war. In 1938, the Nazis are rising to power. You have all this stuff. So that was going into the second. So now Joe Louis wasn't out playing golf before this fight. Joe Louis was in the gym, and it showed. I mean, it really did. This fight lasted less than 2 minutes. Joe Louis came out, knocked him down 3 times. All of them. Everything started with the right hand of Louis. And what I noticed in the first fight that was effective for Schmeling was not effective in the second fight. And you remember how I told you he leans backward when he throws shots, and he tends to lean backward. So what I noticed, he leans backward and he backs up in a straight line. He doesn't back up on an angle. He doesn't put that foot back. If you're going to do that, at least put a foot back so you can pivot or something like that. He doesn't do any of that. He leans straight back, and he got clipped, and he got clipped hard. Louis hit him with a big right uppercut, got the whole thing started in that first round. He went down, got back up, went down again, another right hand on the button. Now that third knockdown that Joe Louis hit him with, okay, that was one of those iconic shots. Like you see Muhammad Ali over Sonny Liston with that phantom punch. You always see that shot. That was the shot. When I think of Joe Louis, that is the shot I think of. You kind of picture Joe Louis. That's the shot you see in your head. That right hand coming across, hitting Schmeling right on the chin, and him just dropping. I mean, Beeb, what did Joe Louis adjust this time versus last time? What was the difference?
Well, another thing I don't know if you noticed was the body work this time. Because it was also said they were trying to use this as kind of an alibi or an excuse at the end that Schmeling got hit with a kidney punch, and it was actually a nice left hook to the body.
Yeah,
and you mentioned Schmeling going back and leaning back, whatever, and that's a great point. But another problem that arises when you do that as a fighter is you expose your torso. So when you stand straight up, you're like this, and you lean back, your whole body is exposed. And if you look in that fight, Joe Louis was landing some good shots to the head, but he was also softening up Schmeling to the body. When he hit Schmeling to the body, you could see Schmeling kind of buckle over and keel over a little bit. And as he did that, he brought his hands down to protect his body. And that's when Louis started coming over the top with those chopping right hand and came back with the left hook. So I think Joe Louis varied up his attack in this fight, and he noticed that Schmeling is so straight up, fight so tall, doesn't really, if you notice, Louis kind of fights in a crouch. And Louis did have his hands up a little higher this fight, and he was a lot more defensively responsible. Another thing Louis did too is he had his hands out in front of him like this.
I did notice that, yes.
His hands were out this way. So he was trying to kind of catch and shoot a little bit. So I just think Louis really tightened up his game and added a couple wrinkles to his attack. And you have to also understand this fight was a couple years later. He was the champion. He had the experience. Yeah. Schmeling was about 3 years older. Joe Louis was 3 years older. But Joe Louis was in his prime years, and with all due respect to Schmeling was not in his prime years anymore.
He's on his way out. Yeah,
he was on his way down. So the timing is everything in boxing. But not only that, Joe Louis showed the maturity to, recover from the loss and correct the mistakes and come up with a more sound, thorough game plan and make the adjustments in the rematch, which he did.
You don't see that often. You don't see that often. You really don't. For somebody to take a beating like he took in that first fight, because he took a beating. I mean, he got hit and hit and hit again over and over with the same type of shots. You don't see people able to come back from that too often. As far as come back from that and learn from that, make the adjustments and dominate like he did in that second fight.
Yes, because it's very easy when a fighter of that age takes a loss that devastating.
Right.
It could ruin his career. It could destroy his confidence moving forward.
How many times have we seen it?
We've seen it.
We've seen it a million times.
Times. Yeah. Like Fernando Vargas suffering some of those early knockout losses. He became champion very young. I think he was the youngest champion. Wilfred Benitez was, but he was
the radar. Yeah.
But he was one of the youngest modern day champions. Fernando Vargas was. Well, he became champion at a very, very young age. And he took on tough competitors early on in his career. and he suffered some knockouts, but I don't think it damaged him mentally, but it broke him down physically, I think.
Sure.
And he never was ever the same. So
Got a lot of miles on him after fights like that.
yeah,
You look at Meldrick Taylor with Julio Cesar Chavez. I mean, he was
never the same after that fight. Yeah,
never the same.
But this,
never the same.
But as you said, you made a great point. This was one of those types of fights where you could look at and say, "Wow, this has taken years off of Joe Louis's career," but he was able to weather the storm and he was able to soldier through it and move forward. And he fought on, and he had a great career moving forward after that. Became a champion after that loss, so he was able to regroup, and he did a very good job at doing so. So you have to give him full credit for that.
And he beat James Braddock for the title, yeah?
Correct.
James Braddock, wasn't it?
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know James Braddock, the movie Cinderella Man is about James Braddock. So if you guys go out, you want to see something about boxing, go go download Cinderella Man, go check that movie out. It's really good. But it's about boxing. It's about James Braddock. So there you go. A lot of movies about boxing, man. Definitely interesting stuff. That about does it here. Let's give our salutes out. Beeb, you got the names?
Yes, I do. Let me just pull these open real quick. Get it going here. Okay. Brianna, salute. Carson, salute. Audrey, salute. Maya, salute. Aiden, salute. Cody, salute. Daniel, salute. Daryl, salute.
There you go. Brooklyn, salute. Andrew, salute. Brooke, salute. Addie, salute. Ankit, salute. Kanice, salute. Kiara, salute. Chase, salute. Princess, salute. Austin, salute. Tim, salute. Let me give two special shout outs here. Salute to Eli and salute to Noah here. These two guys, Beeb, wrote a letter to my father on Veterans Day, which I thought was very nice. I thought that was very nice. My dad loved it. It made his day. Really made his day for these two to write him a letter like that. So listen, man, he really appreciates it. I really appreciate it. So thank you too. All right.
Can I give one more salute?
No, you're done.
We have to give one more salute to one of the best teachers, if not the best teacher in Ohio, Lisa Lorda.
Oh my goodness.
We got to give her a shout out for being a great teacher.
I guess, she's all right. She's all right. She's okay. I guess she's all right. All right, guys, that'll do it for this edition of Ringside Reporter. As always, you can catch Joe Habib on Twitter at JHabib1. Find our YouTube channel at ringsidereporterlive.com. You can find me on Twitter at Ringside73. And remember to catch our live show Sundays, every Sunday at 7 p.m. on Ringside Reporter Live. And we will see you guys. Well, I guess we'll see you when we see you.